profile. I think back, oh wow, he used to be your mama's boy, but now he just a girl's toy. Her a bank, he'll get a receipt and thanks. Try buying me this, so when you're done buying me that. If you know me, you know I couldn't be brainwashed to do something like that. Then again, I'm not trying to cry victim here. Why all of a sudden? I've traveled the world. I've been on the road since I was 14. I've been signed since I was 15. I've been on the road. Why all of a sudden going to Jamaica, the quote-unquote weed capital? Would I be coming back with a suitcase implanted of marijuana? It doesn't make no sense.
I'm a Jamaican, taking charge and living large and big time. Going for mine, I just bargain.
It's not for me to say who could have done it. It's just for me to say it was done. It's not for me to point the finger, because if the finger could have pointed, I'm sure it would have been pointed the day of trial. Right now, I couldn't tell you. It's just I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and these things happen. I just got to make the best of it for myself and my son.
Jamaican, I'm the Jamaican.
I don't know, maybe things happen for a reason, and maybe this is just a turn for the better. I mean, you've seen what jail has done for Malcolm X. Let's hope it does a turnaround for Michie Mee.
SOC.
The Dream Warriors are like absolutely the most original that we heard from last year, and they had this complete jazz thing going, which no one else was doing, and they were completely on the jazz and reggae tip before everybody started incorporating and turning commercial. So we wanted to do something really different for the second year of Studs, to let everybody know we're evolving and the show keeps changing, you got to keep watching it, and this was the freshest thing we could think to do.
They liked our album, and they were into the jazz part of the album. And they liked our stuff, so they called up Ivan Berry.
Who's on the phone? Who's constantly on the phone?
The reason why we got this TV show thing and everything's going on is because our track in LA is very big, by definition, and the rest of the album. So that's how they picked up the album and they like it, so they wanted us to work with them.
Absolutely love it. I was looking at it today, and you guys won a Juno in 1992, nominated again in 95, and we got the Junos coming up. But digging up, getting some research done, and found out that back in those times they didn't even air. They did not air the hip hop category. Look at this. A camera over there, look at me. They did not air hip hop category at all at the Junos, and it wasn't until the Rascals boycotted it, I think it was in '98. And but moving forward, keeping it positive, leading with love, we come to 2011 Junos, and it's being hosted by a hip hop act. Exactly. So I mean, basically, one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you guys too was just like, how do you feel about, you guys were one of the people that changed hip-hop in terms of alternative hip-hop, mixing in the jazz with it, whatever. So how do you see where hip-hop's turning these days, and how are you enjoying it?
Well, I'm a Jane and Finch brother, born and bred, so is Q.
Hey.
Straight up. And we were always hip-hop heads. But the main thing about it is when you bring an art form and you have to drop something that somebody's never heard before, they tend to want to put it into a category in order for them to feed the masses. And alternative rap was what was given to us. We ran with it and we took it because at those times you don't have much opportunity. And heaven help us, we managed to get over to England and Europe. That was our birthplace. After coming from Canada, we blazed up Europe. We actually brought Gangstar with us straight through Europe.
Oh yeah.
They came out with their whole Jazzmatazz album after that. It was a neutral zone.
You're gonna have to stick around.
There's a lot of history going on.
There's a lot. Canada's hip hop history is amazing. It's hip hop season, Toronto, Canada, Winnipeg, everywhere. I want y'all to know that. I want you guys to stick around if you're cool with that.
Yep.
No reason for you to cover your face. After that, yo. That right there is classic. The best thing about it is, I mean, tell me what you feel about, like, the importance of freestyling and battling in hip hop in terms of like what it was then, and how you feel about it now.
Well, definitely that battling and freestyling back then was like internet and Twittering. It was a way of telling everybody that you were valid, validating yourselves in terms of skill, showing everybody that you could rhyme, being a female, showing that you could hang. So battling was like a double-edged sword for me. I had to use it both ways to kind of get in to the scene and also represent for the ladies.
And get in, you did, because I did a little research today, you know, use that internet, and no doubt. And what I found out today was you were the first Canadian female rapper to sign to a major U.S. label. I mean, please, kudos. That right there gets a big T-Rex now. Like,
you know, hey, T-Rex, not to interrupt, but Michie's being a little bit modest, because back in those days, for a hip-hop artist to have lights, camera, action, at that time, the only groups that was getting that were rock groups, big production type of things. And Michie was getting that stuff at that time. They had a lot of love for Michie in a lot of different ways. And one of the big ways was giving her that full production and, showing her that she's worth more.
And I was trying to get in
rap.
with them and go watch them at Jane & Finch at Breakmasters. He was a top breakdancer in Finch, so I would always want to try to be in the crew. So I wanted to be with Five Aces or his crew, or try to get in with one of the breakdance crews. So it was a lot of elements of hip-hop that was building at that time.
No
It's all about celebrating hip-hop.
Shout out to Jane and Finch, because, you know, Jane and Finch produced a lot of what
big
our
up
Canadian
Chick-fil-A. Gotta big up the J
history is.
Strip and get it
The
right.
J Strip
Black
all
Creek.
day, baby.
I gotta give love.
No doubt. One thing I wanted to talk to you about was the Jamaican Caribbean influence in your music back then, and you know, how it influenced a lot of artists at that time, and the different sound that Canada has now. And just wondering if you feel like that's been lost, or what's your take on that whole thing?
I think it's always going to be an asset to a Canadian artist to have to celebrate their Caribbean culture. Period. It's working now for American artists. I see they're gravitating to their culture. That was something that was forbidden, because when I first came out, they're like, wait a minute, where's she from? And the big difference was, like, I was Jamaican and I didn't fit in. So I was like, MC Coconut. Like, nobody wanted to let me in. So now when I see other artists from other territories gravitating to their culture, which is what we as Canadian artists had to actually make us different, it's a good thing. It's really different. I think that's when when the younger kids now gravitate back to it, and they're going to Jamaica and filming videos and coming, that whole culture, going to the islands for vibes. That was almost like they wouldn't even go into a dance hall scene, much less go to Jamaica to film a video. So things have changed.
For sure. Well, hey, big shout out to all my Jamaicans and Trinidadians and all my West Indian people, my Africans. That's the beautiful thing about our country, and I think that we should embrace that, and it should reflect through our music. So
when Michie was performing, she brought me on board. Let me say that for the record.
Love.
I used to do backup for Michie. I used to do reggae parts for Michie as well. And for me, it translated into a symbol for my group, which we used the sugar cane. So we used to go into different places in different countries and just talking about being black in Canada was a big issue. They did before the music.
Right.
So the symbol is, they're like, why do you have a sugar cane? The sugar cane was like a symbol that we were coming from reggae, ska. We're coming from where Kool Herc birthed hip hop from the beginning. We're coming from the base essence of where it all started from.
No doubt.
Which made us different in Europe, because they were like, are you guys Americans? We're like, no, you're Canadian. So they gravitated to us. That was a really good thing back then.